Somebody's at the door.
Hey guys, get everything all set up for the short-term shop live on the high country of North Carolina. Let's see here. Not quite live yet, doesn't look like. There's kind of a lag on this, which always makes me insecure. Okay, here we go. Now it's being live streamed. One sec. Just checking it all out. Making sure it's connected. All right. Okay. We are live. So, hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the short-term shops. I guess how to buy or where to look in the high country of North Carolina with our high country expert, Garrett Simmons. Garrett, do you want to just introduce not only yourself, but introduce the market a little bit before we share your screen and get going on this?
Absolutely. Excited to be with you guys. So again, my name is Garrett. I am up in Boone, Banner Elk, Blowing Rock area we call the High Country. So Ashe County, Avery County, Watauga County, a little bit of Caldwell, depending on where you are. About 3 hours west of Raleigh, 2 hours north of Charlotte, 2.5, 3 hours away from our OG Smokies kind of area of the mountains, a little bit north of Asheville. So the northwest corner of the state. I will, do you want me to share my screen now and kind of go through some stuff or kind of give
Sure.
more of a market update?
Go ahead.
So cool.
However you wanna do it.
Let's share the screen and cool. Everyone see it? Dialed. Cool. So if we zoom out from a kind of a macro standpoint, you can kind of look at where we are, you can drag and where we're located. So these two blue lines are going to be the two big cities, the metropolitan areas in North Carolina where people are going to come visit up here. You know, you click on it, you got a 3-hour drive from Raleigh and about a 2-hour drive from Charlotte. We zoom in a little bit closer, we'll see just some attractions. This is an interactive map. It's on the Facebook group. If you guys want to post and click around, you can see some short-term rentals that are up here in the area. You can see some of the attractions year round. So we'll start with the season that we're in now. You know, I sometimes fall into the trap of when I'm buying anything, you know, there's two things that a salesman is going to kind of go and give you. They're going to give you like some truth and some facts and then their personal perspective. So I'm going to try to stick to just some facts of the area. And obviously I have my opinion and perspective of the area. I'm biased because I have been up here for, you know, went to school up here and have been on and off up here for the last 10 years. So yeah, we're going to kind of introduce the area. The biggest difference between our area and the Tennessee Smokies, the North Carolina Smokies, is going to be the temperature, the elevation. So I believe I looked up, you know, Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge is going to be around 1,200 feet in elevation. Boone is 3,300 feet. Beach Mountains just over 5,000 feet. Boone is the highest elevation town east of the Mississippi River with with the population over 10,000 people. So it's kind of if you look at climate, you look at precipitation, waterfall, rain and precipitation year round, we are going to mirror a northeastern Boston, Maine climate, which surprises most folks when they think of North Carolina. So it hardly ever gets into the 80s in the summertime. There's, you know, two weeks out of the year, you wished you had air conditioning. I just turned my heat on last night for the first night, it was 38 degrees when I woke up this morning. So very seasonal temperatures in the summertime. National parks, hiking, horseback riding, fishing, golfing, whitewater rafting, you name it in the summertime. And in the wintertime, obviously, people are going to come up to ski and snowboard. There's another map that I'm going to show you guys. This is a map of every ski resort in the country. It's sorted on the left at not the elevation of the town, but the elevation of the drop. So obviously you see out in Colorado, you're dealing with 4,000 feet elevation, you know, your serious stuff. All this stuff in the Midwest is, you know, I don't even know if you can call it skiing, sledding, or, you know, little bunny hills. So if we can try to check off some of these bunny hills and limit down, you'll see that obviously you have your big stuff out west, your big stuff up north. And part of the reason we target these, you know, drivable vacation markets, if you look in the Southeast, if you are anywhere in the Southeast and you don't want to hop on an airplane, when the winter comes around, you are going to drive up to our area and go skiing or snowboarding. I know there's some other areas up, down, you know, in your guys' in the Smokies neck of the woods. I haven't heard about these areas, which typically means that haven't heard of people vacationing out there to ski or snowboard in the wintertime. So a little bit less seasonality because of that. In the wintertime, I would say from an annual standpoint, you're going to get 60 to 65% of your revenue in the wintertime because of that. Now, a lot of people ask, me personally, I like being here in the summertime because it's, again, the temperatures are super cool and there's a lot of things I can do. Part of the reason that we're going to see more demand in the wintertime is that in the summertime, again, zooming back to this map, you're going to see people coming from Raleigh, Charlotte, all these metro areas of North Carolina. I grew up in Raleigh. There was never any need for me to cross over these mountains to go to the Smokies. On the flip side, if you're in Knoxville, if you're in Chattanooga, if you're in Nashville, there's no reason for you to cross over the Smokies to come to the high country. In the wintertime, that changes. So because things are a little bit slower in the Smokies, January, February, there's no snow, there's no place to ski or snowboard. You're going to get a wider net of people. So you will get people from Nashville coming in, to town in the wintertime because if they don't want to hop on an airplane again, you'll get people from Atlanta that don't want to go to Blue Ridge in the wintertime because there's not much for them to do. So that's going to be, one of the main reasons that we're going to be real busy in the wintertime. The ski season usually kicks off. The slopes open around Thanksgiving. So beginning of Thanksgiving kind of kicks off the winter months. That usually lasts till the end of March. I have snowboarded on spring break when I was in college, which is the first week of April. That's kind of the latest that things have stayed open. So Thanksgiving to the end of March is going to be our big winter season. April, May tends to be a little bit of a wet transition season. You'll have a good day here and then it's raining the next day. So that's kind of a transition season. It's a season that I recommend people kind of getting in and doing any sort of work that they might want to do after the season to get ready for the summer. Once the middle to the end of May is when things start to heat up for the summertime. Golf courses open up, all of the horseback riding, zip lining, all of the national parks start to open up in the summertime. So the end of May, middle to end of May, all the way through really right now, the end of leaf season, peak week is kind of what we call it, when the leaves turn and it's perfect. It changes every year. Usually this year they're calling for it to be a little bit earlier, the first week of October. Usually it's sometime in the middle to end of October. So that kind of is the end of that fall season. November tends to be another little transition month as all the leaves are gone and we gear up for the ski slopes to open up. So it really is a good 9 to 9.5 month rental demand, depending on kind of when that falls, with some lulls in the spring and the fall. As far as the market, the prices, it's one of the things that I get asked all of the time when, people are shopping in the Smokies. Maybe they're priced out in the Smokies and they're looking for somewhere that is going to be a little bit more affordable. It's a double-edged sword. So historically, this area has been a true second home, true vacation home market. You have people from Florida that will spend snowbirds that will spend 4 or 5 months in the summer up here, go back down, to Florida in the wintertime. Their house sits vacant for 7 months, or maybe they give it to a local property manager. Their main goal is not a short-term investor. They are not like you and I. And so the market is historically been priced based on, true second home vacation homes. On top of that, you have the Florida people. You also have these people from high income jobs from the RTP Triangle area, the Triad area in Greensboro, and then Charlotte that are, again, within 3 hours of driving distance, will come up on the weekend, again, have a second home. Maybe they will, rent it short term, but not full time. I know a lot of people that if they can break even and parlay a second home with an investment property, then they're good to go. So because of that, the prices are going to be a little bit lower because short-term investors, unlike the Smokies where you might have 95% of the property or maybe even more owned by short-term investors, it's not the case here. So you're going to be able to pay less for a property, but you're not going to get the same rental data that you might be able to see from sellers and say the Smokies, because there's a very good chance you're buying a property that's never been rented or it's being rented only half the year. Obviously we have all of the AirDNA data on our website. I think it's a great reference and it's a great baseline. That being said, because of the elevation, because of the area, every property is so property specific. It's not a square footage or a bedroom counts. And, you don't have the rental history. The occupancy is going to be a little bit lower because you get the person who spends 5 months up here and rents it for 7. Well, if their occupancy is 70% for 7 months, from a yearly standpoint, that looks like 40 or 50. So it can skew some of the numbers. I kind of use the analogy or parallel it to almost investing in a startup. You know, there's the potential for a little bit more risk. It's not as much plug and play. I think that people that have been to the area or visit the area and can believe in the area and know the area always have a little bit more comfortability buying here, because they know it's an area that is attractive. It's an area that you have places to visit as far as taking your family. There's an amusement park, there's Tweetsie Railroad, there's Grandfather Mountain. And at the same time, you can also get away with your significant other. And it's a place that you can go on your honeymoon to, with wineries and high-end restaurants and 5-star dining. So it's kind of a mix of both worlds on who's coming up here. So kind of back to that, real estate wise, price wise, it is going to be very, the properties that are going to be sold turnkey, change the locks, with good rental history, maybe from a self-manager, maybe even from one of our clients, that stuff is still going to go and sell at a similar price as some of these other markets. You're just not seeing that as much. You're seeing a lot of houses that are owned by maybe a widowed Floridian or a couple from Charlotte or Raleigh whose kids have gotten older and they don't come up here as much, and they're going to try to cash out, when the market's high. So if we zoom in, we'll see. I might even try to just click around on some of these areas. Again, not necessarily do a whole listing rehab on, but just kind of see a little bit of what's going on. So first one, let's see what else we got in here. I guess we'll start with the towns. So the 3 big towns, I kind of call it the 3 Bs: Blowing Rock, Boone, Banner Elk. Boone is going to be your college town. That's going to be where Appalachian State is. I'm an alumni from there. We now have over 22,000 undergrad at App State. So again, that really has a big trickle down effect to, not only the short-term rental space, but just the whole economy as a whole. If you guys are football fans, you guys know that we took off Texas A&M a couple weeks ago. It's a big football town. So you have people every home game, the whole town is packed. There's also requirements. Now that we are now FBS in the top division, we have to have X amount of 4-lane highways going in and out of the town. So there's a 10-year plan to expand all the highways, which has already been started. Stadium's got to get bigger. SAT scores get higher, which means it's harder to get into, which means more people want to go, and the university grows. So that really has a trickle down effect. Obviously, you don't have students staying in your short-term rentals, but my parents, for example, came up multiple times a year and parlayed a kind of a romantic getaway with visiting me and my friends in school. So you have a lot of people visiting friends and family as the university gets bigger. Again, it's not the one main reason to buy a short-term rental, but it is one kind of reason that puts us on the map. So Boone's going to be your big town, again, where your Walmart is, where your hospital is. If we zoom into this little purple area, we'll see this is the only area in town other than one other Best Western where there's hotels in the area. Part of the reason, there was a big giant condo complex that was built on Sugar Mountain back in the 80s, and they've changed all the zoning laws where you can't go higher than 35 feet. So it doesn't pay for hotels to come in to build hotels, because if they can only go higher than, if they can't go higher than 2 stories, it's not going to be profitable for them. So once we get closer to Banner Elk, which is going to be where these ski resorts are, Beach Mountain, Sugar Mountain, there is one hotel, and it is Best Western. So that is going to kind of lead me into my, I guess, talk on condos. We'll touch on condos. Condos up here, I'm a really big fan of. They tend to be in and around Sugar Mountain, Beach Mountain, range from 400 square feet to 1,300 square feet, studios all the way up to 2 baths. They really do function as hotel alternatives. If you have a couple that comes up and they don't want to stay in Boone at a hotel, they're going to stay in a short-term rental, usually in the form of a condo. Even it's not even really because of the money, it's just because of the space. I personally have owned a studio on Sugar back when I graduated college, and it was exactly that. There are condos that I would buy every complex, every unit in the complex if I could, and other complexes that I will personally tell you to stay away from. Similar to some other markets, the HOA is going to be the big thing. HOA fees, I think they vary per complex. The complex that I owned in, they covered everything. I paid $250 a month. They covered everything but electric, and to heat a 400 square foot studio, as you can imagine, is not that expensive even in the dead of winter. So in that particular situation, $250 for trash, cable, internet. I even had a landline. All of those things combined was probably actually cheaper if I had a single family home. So HOA fees, again, they're going to vary, but I would not be scared away from them. The big thing to think about, obviously, is going to be your special assessments in some of these condos. Most of the condos were built in the 80s. Some of them have done a really good job in, revamping the effective age, doing some renovations and keeping up with the exteriors. And then others are going to have a lot of deferred maintenance. And those are going to be the ones that I would say, unless you're buying the whole complex and can rewrite the HOA laws, I would typically stay away from. How I view special assessments, and I know we've touched on this before in other areas and other videos, is I view them as CapEx. The same thing as you have a single family home, you need a new roof, you need a hot water heater, you need a new deck if you own the property long term. And so I still encourage people to include a CapEx in their condo. Just because you own a condo doesn't mean you don't need a new roof. You're just not the only one paying for it. You're paying for it, with the rest of the property owners. So I would encourage you to, think about special assessments as that and not be scared of them, and just kind of view them as capital expenditures. So that's going to kind of be your condo area. We're zoomed in on these ski resorts: Beach Mountain, Sugar Mountain, Banner Elk. Blowing Rock is going to be your other kind of big town. Historically, it has been the highest property value town up here. It's where the senator has a house. You walk downtown and it feels like there's no blade of grass unturned. It's where everyone wants to visit. That being said, which kind of leads me into the next kind of segment of the spiel, which about restrictions. There are 2 towns in the area that have any sort of restrictions. It's going to be Boone and it's going to be Blowing Rock. Blowing Rock has probably the most amount of political pushback as far as people wanting to restrict short-term rentals. The local county planning and inspections office is going to be your person to figure out. The laws are always changing, but R1 and R15 zoning are the 2 things that we want to stay away from. Typically in listings, agents will disclose that because, again, it is a selling point. The caveat to both of these places is that there are a lot of places in Boone or Blowing Rock that are not part of the town. They're only part of the county. So they might have a Blowing Rock address. So even if we zoom into downtown Blowing Rock and we take 221 and we go just a little bit this way, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. I have a client who has a short-term rental right here. And that, again, is, unless they ask to be annexed from the town, which I don't know why you would want that unless your well went dry or you wanted to, access city utilities. There are no county restrictions and you can do whatever you want. You have a Blowing Rock address. So Boone and Blowing Rock are really great. I would not tell people to stay away from them. But the zoning is going to be the first thing to think about. Boone, again, in and around the university and around downtown, are going to be where those are. They are actually old laws that were there to prohibit brothels, believe it or not. No more than 2 unrelated people living in the same house, and they've kind of stuck around because they keep college kids out of certain neighborhoods and also short-term rentals. So that's going to kind of be your 2 zoning, your 2 towns to think about. The only other areas that have any sort of restrictions are going to be some of these HOAs, which, again, are far and few in between. Typically, the HOAs that are going to prohibit short-term rentals are going to be some really high-end golf course communities, where celebrities have houses that, to be honest, the houses are not going to cash flow anyway, with some of the high HOA fees and prices. And again, so that's kind of a little bit of restrictions. Beach Mountain, there are, as far as permits, regulations, you don't even need a business license to have a short-term rental up here. There are certain towns. I think Beach Mountain, you have to fill out a form. There's a couple things you need, like requirements, like you have to have a bear-proof things over your trash can. You have to have a landline because the cell phone service sucks. And so there's a small list of things that you have to make sure that you do have, because if you have it listed as a short-term rental, you're kind of under you could get your property inspected, and there's a small checklist. So that's the kind of gist on restrictions, areas, towns. Another question I get a lot is, Garrett, what's the best area? I've kind of highlighted this map. So anywhere in this blue is going to kind of be your high concentration, highest property values, but also highest rent. Some of these blue, this yellow area, I actually own this cabin out right on the fringe. That is, in a secondary area. It's going to be cheaper. Sometimes the numbers make sense. Again, it's all going to be property dependent. One of the cool things about the mountains is that unlike the beach, maybe there were people that will come up to the mountains and they want to just have no service and sit in the middle of the woods and go to the grocery store once and not leave. So if you have a property that's really cool and unique and has a view, you might be able to be out in West Jefferson or Zionville and still kick ass because, people want to get away and they don't want to be on the boardwalk seeing 16,000 people like they might, want to at the beach. A little bit back to property analysis. What's the sweet spot? That's another question I get all the time. As much as everybody wants a black and white answer, I don't think there is one. I think that kind of back to the elevation, the height, we have some views we have $200,000 views, $300,000 views, all things being equal. There's views where you can see 4 states from the back deck, North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Virginia. And there's mid-range views where you can see maybe a little bit of a pasture. Maybe you got only a view in the wintertime when the leaves are gone. Or you might have a cool roundhouse in the middle of the woods that has a creek running through it. Again, things that are kind of hard to value. And so you have to be a little bit more creative with your underwriting. And that's going to affect the price as well. We have $1.5 million houses that are 2,000 square feet that might bring in 150K in gross revenue. And we have 2,000 square foot houses that are 500,000 that might not even bring in 50, again, depending on the age and condition. It's not a be all end all to be a traditional log cabin up here. Unlike maybe some other mountain areas and up here. Sure, you're not going to find a bright pink beach house, but you might find a, new construction that is dark gray board and batten with black windows and cedar shake accents or something along those lines that still looks like a mountain house. Modern mountain is kind of the word or vibe that I use to describe in my opinion, the thriving aesthetic up here. See if we can look at a couple just to get a feel for what we're looking at. Let's see. So here's one. Here's a modern luxe A-frame retreat. This is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. Again, not all 1-bedroom, 1-baths are alike. You can kind of see this is just on. This is new. This is not a client of ours, but you can kind of click through and see what's going on, what it looks like, what the vibe is. Again, it's not a log cabin, but it has a little bit more of that modern, updated feel. Let's see what else we got. This, again, more of a traditional cabin, which again is hosted by Evolve, which you guys probably know is a property manager that not a lot of people use. But even with them, you can see something that gets a lot of traction. And yeah, even with Evolve, I'm not sure. Even the enemy, let's see if we can look at the calendar. October is all the way booked. November is most of the way booked too. That's even through a property management company. So there's something, as far as the area, what's the best area? Circling back to that, each area kind of has its own unique characteristic. I would say if you're anywhere in this blue map, the numbers are going to be similar. Sometimes it really comes down to where you're coming from. So if we zoom back and look at some of this, the map, if you're driving from Raleigh or anywhere from the east, Boone is going to be the first town you hit. It takes you an extra 45 minutes to get to the top of Beach Mountains. And sometimes that's a determining factor for people saying, hey, if I'm coming up to visit my kid, in college, I'm going to stay in Boone. I'm not going to drive out to Banner Elk or Beach Mountain. If you're coming up in the wintertime to say, hey, all I want to do is ski or snowboard, well, you might stay in a ski and ski out place on beach, and that's where you want to be. So I think the closer you are to the ski resorts, your revenue is going to be a little bit more seasonal. It might be more closer to that 70-30% in the wintertime. If you got a ski and ski out condo, you might even get 80% of your revenue in the wintertime because, you're right on the slopes. Why do you need to be right on the slopes in the summertime? They do convert the lifts to mountain bike lifts in the summertime. So there is still a demand to be around in the summertime, but obviously there's more skiers, snowboarders than there are downhill mountain bikers. So the wintertime is going to be a little bit more busy out, in the southwestern part, and you're going to see a little bit more seasonality. If you have a view, that's kind of your trump card. If you're going to be out, I tell people, if you're going to be in some of these yellow areas, make sure you got a view and make sure you can check some of these boxes that you don't necessarily have to check if you're in a more of a central location. You also have some people you have a lot of people from North Carolina, as I mentioned, that vacation up here. I have clients that say, hey, my grandparents had a place on Beach Mountain. I want to be on Beach Mountain. I have other clients that come into town to look at the area, and, they say, hey, Beach Mountain's too far away from Boone and restaurants and coffee shops. I want to be a little bit closer to the action. I love the Blowing Rock Fosco area. So it really is dependent. I don't think the revenue is going to change other than a little bit more seasonality in some of these southwestern portions. Yeah, that kind of is my quick little cliff notes. If that was quick, I'm not sure how much time we went through on the area, why people are up here, and what draws people up here. And yeah, I'm not sure if you have any questions or not.
I mean, I'm completely blown away. I'm speechless over here, which might be the first time in my entire life. So bravo, great job. You're rocking it, man. We're happy to have you here at the shop. I guess, I'm gonna play devil, bad guy over here and ask again, probably something that you get asked all the time. How much is it? How much can I buy a house for and how much it'll rent for? You know what I mean? Give me a speech on that. I didn't want to throw out actual numbers, but let's say I want to buy a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom. What's a ballpark right now? We're coming into we're in the fourth quarter now of 22. Give me like some really huge ballpark numbers, and then, any possible idea. Of course, we want to rely on our own data and the enemy method, but any numbers you could give me would be great.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the bedroom count, again, kind of circling back to what I had mentioned, it's really going to be where everything's on septic up here. So everything's going to be rated by what the septic permit is rated, is perked for. 2-bedroom condos obviously are going to be a little bit different than a 2-bedroom house. That being said, I have a client, actually a long OG short-term client who has done a lot of stuff for, started in Tennessee. 750 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. You're modern. Actually, let's see if it's on this map. If it's not, it should be. Let's see. Oh yeah, I think it is. Perfect example. All right, we got 2-bedroom, 2-bath, new construction. I would say it's your upgrade from a tiny house. So a little bit bigger than a tiny house. The builder wanted to make sure it wasn't a tiny house. There's 2-bedroom, 2-bath, not a view, but in a great location. Boone, Blowing Rock, paid $425 for it. Just went live a couple months ago. If you look at the calendar, he's building his reviews. October is completely booked. November is a little bit booked. This is something where you're going to probably see, from an annual standpoint, anywhere from 50 to 65 grand a year gross. This is going to be your top percentile of, hey, all I got to do is change the locks and I'm good to go. That's going to be very small, a very small percentage of that. There's not a lot of inventory up in this area that is in that price, that square footage and price point. So for $425, again, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, it's only 700 square feet, except, from a short-term rental standpoint, who gives a shit? It's awesome. It looks sweet. It's got a cool, it's a brand new spa cabin. And so that's an example of kind of your entry level, smaller end, new construction. If we go back to, let's see what else we got actually. And I might know some of this because it's all. Another roundhouse. I just got a client just actually sent me this yesterday. They got done all the work.
That's cool.
They paid $225 for this, 700 square feet. 2-bedroom, like theoretically 2-bedroom, 1-bath. All the bedrooms are a little bit different. But something like this, again, you're going to get at least 40, 40 to 55 a year on something that, they paid $225. Who knows how much they paid, but it did not look like this before. They basically did a full reno. As far as condos, I personally bought a condo, 400 square foot condo. Right now, you can get one for 160 if it needs to be gutted. If it's turnkey, 200, 210. And you're going to see something somewhere around 30 to 40 grand. Again, how it's managed, how it's staged, if pictures are taken right, et cetera. Once things are up and running. Once you kind of get up in that high range, like what can $1 million get you? Again, it's really going to change on the view. Actually, let's see if we have another property kind of in that. We'll work our way up, something in that $500,000 range. Actually, no, we'll go big. This is the big one. Client of mine, they've owned it for a while, so what they paid for it is not going to be relevant to today's market. This is going to kind of be on your 6-bedroom, high end, modern furnishings, mid-range view, I would say. I don't know if we can get to the view. You can kind of see it through there. It's a pastoral view. It's not like the fourth state kind of stuff. This is going to see somewhere between, this is probably going to be 1.2 to 1.4 million. And you could expect to bring in anywhere between 160 to 180, conservatively here. Let's see what else we got that could be a little bit more relevant. I just sold 1,300 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom with a loft. I would call it a mid-range view where you can see a little bit out. It's going to be out in this area here. That was $500,000. I would say it was 70% turnkey as far as they're going to keep some of the furnishings, get rid of some stuff, slap on some granite, not necessarily some crazy contractor work. So $500,000. I think that was actually one of the unicorn ones where the seller was self-managing and doing a pretty good job. In that one, they had brought in about $67K gross revenue last year. So for $500,000. So anywhere kind of between the 10 to 16%, gross revenue to purchase price is kind of where we're looking at. As far as what's going quick, again, you still have people up here that want to buy second homes, people from Florida, people from North Carolina. So everything kind of in that first house that I showed you, this range, this thing comes on the market tomorrow, 10 offers, it's still going quickly because the inventory here is very low. There's people that want to hedge inflation with cash purchases. Someone can pay cash for something that's $400,000. They don't care about the interest rate. They can refinance later. This stuff's going very quickly. Once we kind of get up closer to that jumbo loan requirement, 700, 715, stuff that doesn't look as sexy. It's still got the green carpet. It still has the plastic on the couch that, still would have sold the last 2 years. That's the kind of stuff that's moving a little bit slower. You can get a little bit more square footage, for $500,000. I mentioned you can get that 80% kind of turnkey with the view. You might also be able to get 2,500 square feet that might need 50, 60 grand in rehab, and so you might be able to get a little bit more square footage if you're willing to kind of put in that sweat equity for stuff like that. Anything higher, anything over $1 million, again, not a lot of new construction. But if there is something that comes up, it goes quick. Definitely has a little bit more leverage. Again, this is actually, we'll click this one. This is actually a listing of mine. So if anyone wants to buy it, reach out to me. This is a new listing. They just built it. This is going to be something that, again, is unique in the sense of a lot of the bigger, higher end homes were bought and built by people, some of your retired people, and they still need to be updated. There's not as much new construction for a variety of different reasons. The variable cost to build up here is a lot higher. So yeah, this is going to be something where you see, your 4 states from the back deck. Everything's custom, 5 bedrooms, 5 baths, turnkey, change the locks, boom. It'll be bringing around 220 a year and cost you around 2 million. And again, it's going to be, the buyers are going to have a little bit more leverage in this price point, but this is going to be, your high end rental up in the area.
All right. Awesome, Garrett. Let's take some questions. So we have a few in the chat. So you already kind of touched on summer traffic on Sugar and Beach Mountains with mountain bikers and stuff. So let's hit on that again. Like, is it generally decent or just not as good as the wintertime? Is it reverse seasonality from other areas or?
So it's the summertime is going to be, historically, if you ask somebody 50 years ago, they would say this place is a ski town. That has changed and it continues to change by the year. One of the big reasons that it's a little bit slower in my opinion in the summertime is that year round, the majority of people are coming up from North Carolina. Well, in the summertime, people go to the beach in North Carolina. That's beach season. So if your big demographic of people is Charlotte, Raleigh, Winston-Salem, Triad, in the summertime, you're splitting up between, hey, we're going to go to the beach. Some people go to the beach. Some people go to the mountains. You're not going to get anybody from Knoxville, Nashville, very rarely because they got the Smokies. You're not going to get people from Atlanta because they go into Blue Ridge. So the amount of people that are visiting is always a little bit lower compared to the wintertime because, again, you're competing with the beach. Now, when the winter rolls around, no one goes to North Carolina beaches. On top of that, as I mentioned, you're going to get all of these other people that, even from Tennessee, Atlanta, because of the ski resorts. So that's going to kind of be the big reason why the summer can be a little bit slower. Talking to some of my clients that have bought earlier in the year or bought recently, weekends are going to be busy year round. I haven't had a client that has ever had a problem booking a weekend any month of the year. Weekdays can be a little bit slower in the summertime, just again, because you have people going to the beach during the week. I would say the occupancy in some of these smaller places, another reason why I like them in these smaller weekender condos, cabins, those are going to be a lot more of a year-round demand, just because you have people, hey, you have two friends that are nurses or have a weird schedule. Hey, we're going to drive out to the mountains for a day or two. It's a little bit easier to plan on a whim than some of these larger families. The view, anything with the view too. I think the summertime, the listings that suffer in the summertime are going to be kind of in that bottom percentile. So you drop down the demand of who's vacationing, and they have a little bit more pick of the litter. And they're going to favor some of these higher end places. So I've found in the last year, 60-40 is a good kind of overall revenue on, the winter months versus the summer. If you talk to locals up here, every summer tends to be busier than the last. But yeah, overall, I would say winter is just a little bit busier.
So this would be a good place to own. So if you own 2 properties in 2 different markets, this would be a good complement to a property in another market that has like a really heavy summer season. So you're not dead in both. Not that you'd be dead, that's a bad word. So you're not in the low season in both places at one time.
Correct.
And also spreading out the workload that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Luke's a little frazzled at the
another
moment.
question I know I get all the time. That is, probably not helping me out. Is not the answer that everyone wants to hear. Everyone talks about vendors and lists and contractors. That's going to be another one of the double-edged swords of being kind of a smaller. Again, we're not like a town in the middle of the woods. There's still a Walmart. There's still a university. But because the amount of short-term investors is a lot lower than it might be in the Smokies, we do not. It is going to be a little bit harder to find. You might go through 2, 3, 4 cleaners before you find your first one. It's going to be harder to find more reliable vendors in the area, because again, it is kind of an emerging short-term rental area. Again, you're not going to be the first person to own a short-term rental here, but compared to kind of what I see, people post in the Facebook group about 16,000 people to put a new AC unit in the Smokies, it definitely can be a little bit trickier and harder to do that up here. It's a lot more word of mouth. Ask your neighbors. People are like, who's going to plow my road? That's another thing that a lot of people ask on that we'll touch on before I forget. The wintertime snow season, people are, not used to snow. The biggest thing, when you're buying is trying to figure out the driveway. It's not uncommon to have 4-wheel drive required all the time. Especially if you have a view, people decide, plan on driving up to do it. A lot of times people will come up on a whim in the wintertime when there's a snowstorm, and they can't even get into town without a 4-wheel drive vehicle, let alone up their driveway. So that's not usually a huge deal. There are a ton of people, neighbors, the guy at the front of the street that will plow your driveway if you have to, or plow the road. We do have a pretty big infrastructure up here. I remember getting a foot of snow in college and still going to class the next day. So it's not like one of these areas where, it snows 2 inches and the whole town shut down for several days. What were you asking?
Luke, what were you at? You were saying it's good to spread out the workload as a manager across several seasons.
If you got a house that's busy in the winter, house that's busy in the summer, it's kind of like just having one workload, right?
Right.
But no, I did have. So is this an area where, is it safe to say that, should I have an emotional attachment of some sort to this area, or can I be from, I've never even heard of it and have success? Or what are your thoughts there?
Right. Yeah. So I think so. I would honestly say, and again, this might, hurt me with, attracting out of town buyers. A lot of people up here, my client's biggest problem is that they want to come to their property too much, and they can't afford to come to their own house. So it's a place that people want to spend time to. That's part of the reason why it's always been a second home, vacation home mark. Again, no knock against the Smokies. I have people that have clients that have large portfolios of cabins in the Smokies, and they don't go there. They'd rather just take the cash flow and go somewhere else. So it's actually a place that, like, I use the analogy again. I use the analogy of like this: if the Smokies is like the Myrtle Beach of the mountains, we are more like the Outer Banks, as far as, again, not from necessarily a number standpoint or investment standpoint, but who's coming up to visit again. People, celebrate their anniversary. You can go to a winery. You can spend $600 a night to go stay at the spa, the West Glow Spa, which is a nationally ranked spa. I saw in the chat, Eric Church lives up here in the summertime. You have celebrities that, spend a significant amount of CEOs that spend a lot of time up here. And so I have found that everyone that's up here does kind of, even if they didn't know it at the time, they get an emotional attachment to the area because, there is a special kind of just vibe and feel to the area when they're up here.
Which to me, that is a bit of a benefit for a lot of folks as far as management is concerned, because everybody says don't get emotionally involved with rental real estate, which is true in most cases. But when it comes to short term, or at least, how we do things here, vacation style, at the short-term shop, it really is beneficial to have some sort of to like your house. You got to like it. Otherwise you're not going to
believe in your product. Yeah.
Right. Right. Which applies to any sort of business. If I'm a vegan, I'm probably not going to have a lot of success, starting a jerky company.
Right. Yep. Yeah. It's exactly like that. It's like, I don't really care about this thing that I'm selling right now. And it is, it's not a long-term where you can just put somebody in it and forget about it for a year. You do need to be attached and paying attention. And so I think that aspect helps. Well, I'm blown away. Avery, what do I do here? I've never been speechless in my life. The gentleman's got his act together.
Garrett has that effect on you.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Really cut your hair. What am I going to do?
There's still some for you to grab in San Diego next week.
Oh boy.
Still got a little bit up top.
Okay, crossing lines. Love it.
Yep. All right. So anyway, yeah, you are kind of making me want to come buy something up there. So that's awesome. And I really like this right now, especially because it's one of my favorite short-term markets at the moment, especially because of the way the interest rates are and stuff. And so a lot of people, they want to still buy because the deals are out there, because uncertainty puts fear in the market and people are willing to take numbers that they might not have taken a year or two ago for their property when they're selling it. So it's a good pivot for people who might have been, really trying hard to get into one of the more, what I call blue chip markets, like the Smokies last year, and then they couldn't. And then now, maybe they never bought anything. And now you can scoot over to a cheaper market. You can still get a deal. And the interest rates, interest rate is not going to be as much of a factor as if you're buying like a $2 million property. Obviously still run your numbers, make sure that the numbers work at the interest rate you're able to get it for, but it's a really good pivot in a more affordable market than some of the more blue chip markets. So I think it's a really good buy right now. So Garrett, thank you so much for the presentation. Really great job. If you guys want to buy a property with Garrett in the high country, email agents@theshorttermshop.com and we will get you all set up. Make sure, if you're watching this, you either like us on Facebook or you're in our short-term rental, long-term wealth Facebook group. If you're not in that Facebook group, head on over there and join it. And there's a lot of us over there talking about short-term rental investing all day, every day. But if you want to work with Garrett, again, agents@theshorttermshop.com and we will get you hooked up. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.